Hey guys, Mustang in here bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we are continuing on with the new Super Battle Road stage guides with this stage, now level 44, Inhuman Deeds. So this is one that has received a huge amount of buffs on Global thanks to stuff that has released recently, and there are a ton of options that you can use for this stage outside of the actual just, you know, blanket Inhuman Deeds format. Because if we look at the category itself, there's a ton of units on here. The only actual leader is the LR, Nappa and Vegeta, which funnily enough, despite, you know, all the summons that I do on the legendary summon banners, they are one of the like 3 LRs in the game that I don't actually have. So if you're in the same boat, you can't even run what is technically an Inhuman Deeds team, but there's a ton of other options that you can use that we are going to go through, which honestly might even be better just because of the higher leader skill values and things like that. So as always with these guides, we're going to go through my top picks and honorable mentions. If there's any units you think I missed out or units I should have talked more about, let me know down below in the comments and we can continue the discussion down there. If you find the guide helpful at all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let us go ahead and jump straight in. Okay, so obviously if you do have Nappa and Vegeta, they are the Inhuman Deeds lead, 4 key, 130 to stats. They do an AoE super on their 12 key, which is of course very useful for Super Battle Road. They do also raise defense on both of their super attacks. So these guys definitely are useful to use in here. They do get extra attack and defense per existing enemy as well. So, I mean, they are pretty well designed for Super Battle Road. If you get to turn 4 at 50% or less HP, you can exchange into the Vegeta, who is obviously more of a single target unit, which is good for Super Battle Road because by the time you get to turn 4, you're probably only down to 1 enemy anyway. But yeah, these guys are the standard Inhuman Deeds lead. If you have them, then obviously this gives you the option to use any of the units in the category, albeit under only a 130 leader skill. But moving on, we have LR Full Power Frieza. So this is another stage that has been hugely impacted by Global getting these stages later, because Frieza leads Sworn Enemies or Planet Namek Saga, and Sworn Enemies includes almost every Frieza, or at least most of them, and almost every Frieza is on Inhuman Deeds. So I would say the best team for this stage is actually to just run double LR Frieza and just make a full Frieza team. And this team is going to be incredibly powerful. We talked about Frieza in a previous guide already, but he is a very powerful unit. If he gets hit in slot 1, he gets a guaranteed additional super attack. If you're fighting against super class enemies, you have the ability to use his active skill as well, which can be used as a nice finisher when there's only 1 enemy left. And then you don't have to risk any of those typical Super Battle Road shenanigans, like taking a super attack in slot 1 before you get to do anything. You can just use the active skill to finish off the enemy. So this Frieza is incredibly powerful. I mean, he's in contention for being one of the best units in the game. And so he is very, very good for this stage. It's a huge buff for Global to have this available as soon as the stage comes out. So next up, we also have the Int Broly. So I saw a lot of people when this stage released on JP, it's very easy to make a Planetary Destruction and Movie Bosses team that is all Inhuman Deeds, because again, a lot of the Freezers are on both of those categories. There's a lot of units that are on those 2 categories that are very good for this stage. And Int Broly himself is very good. He has damage reduction. He raises defense with each super attack. There are pure and hybrid Saiyan enemies throughout this stage, although not that many, so you are able to get some of the buffs. I think it's only on the first stage actually, but he's still very, very good for this, and his team is very, very good. So he's a unit that you could quite easily just run double leads for him and even just use him as a 3rd slot floating unit and build the other team around some of the Freezers and other units that are on Planetary Destruction and Movie Bosses. So double Broly leads is definitely another very strong way to build this team. So, of course, we have to mention him every time he can be used, but we won't go over it too much. LR Broly, of course, very, very good for this stage. AoE supers, very good defense, especially after supering. There's not really a huge amount we have to say about this guy. If you have him fully easy aid with dupes, link leveled, he's just going to be firing off multiple supers and absolutely destroying everybody. So we don't really need to say much more about LR Broly. As I said in one of the other guides, any stage that you can use this guy on for Super Battle Road, you probably should be. So next up, we have one of the other new LRs from the download celebration, which is the Vegeta that exchanges into Goku. So he is on Inhuman Deeds, because obviously the card basically starts off as Vegeta, so he has all the categories and everything that this Namek Vegeta would have. They are also on Planetary Destruction, so you can, and Namek Saga, so you can literally run this unit under LR Nappa and Vegeta, LR Full Power Frieza, or Int Broly. So very, very good. Raises defense on both super attacks. You have obviously very solid defense unless you're starting the turn with 30% or less, because they want you to get that exchange into Goku. Other than that, his kit isn't very complex. He just does big numbers, raises attack and defense on super, so is a very strong option for this team. And if you do drop below 30% HP, remember this has no turn restriction. So if you finish a fight on like 25% HP and go into the next fight, this is going to be active. So you could potentially put him in slot 1, get him killed, exchange into the Goku, and then you have Goku straight away, who again is just incredibly powerful. He doesn't get a super complicated passive or anything like that, just much bigger numbers, greatly raises on 18 key instead of normal raise, so he's just going to be very, very powerful. And the team can be built with quite a few Saiyans, especially if you are running the Int Broly lead, so links like Saiyan Warrior Race, Prepared for Battle, Fierce Battle, Saiyan Lineage, like some of these you're going to be able to get active, and this unit is going to be very powerful. So next up we have this AGL AoE Freezer. I thought I'd include him just because he's an AoE unit. He does have a chance to stun and seal like multiple enemies, so he can be very, very useful for Super Battle Road. And of course he fits under the Namek Saga or Sworn Enemies lead if you want to run the Frieza. He's also on Planetary Destruction if you want to run Broly, so he's another unit that can fit onto many of these team builds. Then we have Golden Frieza. I put the Tech one here, but the Tech one or the AGL one, both are super, super good for Super Battle Road because they're really, really good turn 1 tanks with that crazy damage reduction that they have. Again, Planetary Destruction and Sworn Enemies, so he can be run on any of the teams that we've talked about so far. In fact, actually, is he not on Sworn Enemies? Yeah, he is. Of course he is. I wonder, it was the last one there. But yeah, very, very good for Super Battle Road, him and the AGL one. So next up, we have the Tech Transforming Frieza. Again, post Easy A, this guy's really good. He dishes out tons of damage. He heals you at the start of the turn. He's just very, very powerful. Like I say, you can make a very strong, pretty much just full Freezers team if you have the AGL Freezer. You could also use this guy as a stand-in leader because he is Extreme Class 3 key and 130. So not as high as some of the others. But if you don't have the AGL Freezer, for example, you could run this guy as a lead, bring a Freezer friend, and then still make pretty much that full Freezer team, and you're going to be looking very good for this stage. So next up we have this guy. Of course, we can't really leave this guy out. He's the Sworn Enemies 40% support unit. So even if you're running like the Broly leads, but you've put a bunch of Frieza units on that team, then this guy is going to work really, really well as a 3rd slot support unit. He gets multiple supers in a turn as long as you get good RNG, and each one raises his defense, so he can tank reasonably well. So realistically, even if you're only bringing a couple of Freezers on the team, if you have this guy, he's going to be very beneficial to bring for this stage as well. So then next up we have the physical second form Frieza. He's another one that I included just because he has that AoE. He hasn't aged super well defensively, but he definitely can be useful if you're running that full Freezer team and you need one final unit to fit in the last spot, especially because he is a free-to-play unit, so he's a lot easier for people to get. You don't have to, you might not have gotten like the Int 3rd form Freezer in your summons or anything like that, but this guy can easily fill that final slot on the team and is an AoE unit, so is obviously going to be quite useful. So next up we have a couple of other options that are not quite on the same teams. Like we have here the STR Omega. As you can see, he's on Inhuman Deeds, but he's not on Planetary Destruction, Sworn Enemies, or Planet Namek Saga. So he's a unit that you're going to be running if you're using one of the more generic leaders. But he's very good for Super Battle Road because he nerfs all the enemies' attack by 40%, which is a very powerful effect. And if you do have any crossover with full power allies, he does give extra key and attack buff to them as well. So defensively, he's not super great anymore, especially in some of the harder content, but where you can still lower attack, like Super Battle Road, he definitely can be very useful. He probably would be more of a 3rd slot floating unit rather than a main rotation one, but he is still going to be very useful. And then last up, we could have put this guy a bit earlier, I guess, is the Bojack, because he's on Inhuman Deeds. His leader skill, Space Traveling Warriors and Time Travelers, is another one where there is a ton of crossover with Inhuman Deeds, so you could quite easily run a double Bojack team. And then, like, some of the Freezers that we've talked about are on Space Traveling Warriors. Like, there's a lot of good units that you could use if you run Bojack as the leader. Like, maybe you have the AGL Full Power Freezer, but you just don't have a lot of other Sworn Enemies or Planet Namek Saga units. Then he will fit nicely onto Bojack's team and just run him on rotation with another Freezer that you do have. So he gets some of his links active. So Bojack is definitely a solid option as well. So, looking back at the Inhuman Deeds category, I mean, units like Super 17 is on here. So, Super 17, is AGL 13 on here? He's not. So, Super 17 can be good for Super Battle Road, but you're missing out on, like, one of his best link partners. So, he kind of feels like he's lost out there by himself. Baby is an okay unit who hasn't aged super great defensively, but he does have the Great Ape transformation, which could be very useful. And I think, really, that's it in terms of the honorable mention units that we missed out on. Like, Goku Black can be okay as like an orb changer, but again, not super great defensively anymore. The old legendary Super Saiyan Broly could fill the final slot on a team, but again, he's a stacker and he builds up quite slowly, so his defense isn't all that great. But there are a ton of options here, especially if you pulled the newer units, for how to make a very powerful team without even having to have the LR, Nappa and Vegeta. So there are a lot of options available to you here with the Inhuman Deeds team. But if we look back at the stage, it's like Jacko and Great Saiyaman. Let's see if this Great Saiyaman is actually recognized as a hybrid Saiyan. Then you have the Trunks, Goten and Marin, because Marin is there, they're not a hybrid Saiyan with 17. And then we have the Pride Troopers. So none of these, so unless this Gokhan is considered a hybrid Saiyan, okay, he is. So at least in that first stage, for some of the Broly passives, you're going to be able to get those. But the other stages, you are not. So that is something you have to be aware of. But Inhuman Deeds has a ton of solid options. Like I said, I still think the strongest option is going to be to run double AGL Freezer. But let me know what you guys think down below. As I said at the beginning, if you think there's a unit that I missed out that I should have talked about, mention it down below in the comments section. And let me know what your team build is going to look like for this stage. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store. And I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.